Professor Sinha and Dr. Wankede for, I think, for highlighting to us not only the ways in which JNU has tried to make education accessible to all social margins, but also from Dr. Wankede's elocution to also talk about the problems that people from social margins have been facing. He went a bit autobiographical, and I also want to do that because most of you may think I'm from the Northeast, but I was born in Pune, and I graduated from Ferguson College in Pune, and all I studied was Shivaji. So when I came to JNU, under the University of Pune, we all studied only Shivaji, and from class 8 and onwards. And when I came to JNU, it was such a major shock for me when I realized that history went beyond Shivaji. So, and so it was a great, deep learning experience for me while I sort of understand what Harish has gone through in trying to adapt, I also recognize that, but also recognize that these kinds of ways in which the university has tried to bring people in together has been a great learning experience for me as well. So it hasn't been completely, I would like to say it hasn't been completely a failure in that sense, because for me as a person from the Northeast, this was the first time I met a Naga. This was the first time I was meeting a Khasi, here in JNU. So in many ways, I think the idea of deprivation, the idea of these kinds of, I think it is a conscious sort of attempt at bringing people in. But of course, there's a lot to work on, and I do agree with Dr. Wankede that we have to try and cultivate an environment in which, an intellectualism develops from all sections of society. Which brings me to the second sort of question that I want to pose, which is, we talk about inclusivity, we want to bring people from all social margins, but what about, is quality something that becomes expendable in the process? This is not to say, there's often an allegation that people from scheduled SC, ST categories that include myself are not as intelligent and things like that. Those are the allegations. So this is not in that sense, but I think as teachers, all of us have been realizing that, that maybe it's becoming more and more difficult to teach in the classroom because people are so varied and they come from different backgrounds. So I just want us to think about, even as the founding fathers or mothers or the founding leaders have said that, there should be a center of intellectual excellence should be something that is cultivated here. How does one sort of bridge this sort of thing between diversity, inclusivity, excellence, and also, I was just pointing towards maybe admission procedures that we're talking about increasingly these days. So I just want to thank you so much, Sona, for joining us. So I just want to talk about that, but then, and maybe you have some ideas on that, and or I don't know how to go about it, but maybe I'll have Sona catch her breath a bit, and then then maybe you can talk to us about your experience in the university in Dumka about the issues that we're talking about, access to education. So maybe something about the entrance exams and things like that, in which we can focus on excellence with regard to the university. Anything?
Now, of course, the problems of the scheduled class and scheduled tribe students are often been discussed in most of the forums. That maybe because of their class position, the access of quality education in their hometowns, and many other such reasons are there, because of which probably there is a comparative understanding about how the students from elite Delhi colleges will perform in the class, and those who are coming from little backward regions or small coastal towns, how they will perform the class. So there is always a kind of a competitive access around which the students are graded. And probably in that, while grading the students, are probably we hardly understand this particular social and historical background. And we expect that the kind of what we call a very vibrant intellectual language that we use in our classrooms to teach, or to some kind of a theoretical background that is required to understand most of the social science classes. We believe that some of these students were not capable to understand that, and probably therefore it was expected that to make them as par with other students, there is a requirement for something called a preparatory 1 year course, which IIT had earlier, or in JNU some kind of a remedial classes. But there is somewhere this acceptance is very much there, that the student coming from deprived sections lack that kind of a quality access of education, and maybe because of that, when they try to learn that particular thing in the classroom, they always lag behind. So that understanding is there. I think more than that, I think teachers also need to understand this particular fact and suggest that what they need to do to kind of make the education better, the access of quality education better. We do not have any kind of a formal arrangement to overcome that. Remedial classes is just a small initiative that we believe it is there in the university, but hardly in any center I believe that remedial classes functions really well. And therefore it becomes a burden of the student who are coming from that particular background to overcome that burden, to read more, to engage more with texts and other academic disciplines, and overcome that particular facility. So of course it's kind of a heavy burden, because we allow students to come to this particular university from such backward locations, and expect that probably they will understand those higher academic language in a proper shape. So of course that particular complexity is there, and we do not have any arrangement to overcome that.
Yeah, I agree with Harish, and based on my own experience, I do understand that, unless and until there is some kind of formal mechanism built into the system, that it's very difficult to overcome the complex problem of delivering quality education to students from certain backgrounds. But let me also share my own experience that, being a social geographer, my classes and interacting with generations of students. If the teacher, even in the absence of a formal mechanism or a formal institutional arrangement, I think some small initiatives can be made. And I tried doing that at my own level, and this really became useful, because it really taught me a lot. Where I would interact with my students at individual level, because if you are teaching a course, if you are getting the tutorials, as to where they stand. So irrespective of who they were, I would reach out to as many of them, those who were weaker in certain areas, and try to engage with them in some way or the other. I really found that these interactions really helped me develop my tutorials, or maybe my assignment framework, in a much better way. So a kind of a continuous dialogue with students is very important, and I think that is possible only in a structure like JNU, when the classrooms in a semester really is limited to 50 or 60. But if the classrooms is huge, then the kind of time that you could perhaps devote to students in their seminar papers, and you listen to their seminar presentations. I'm absolutely of the view that most of us who came from Mufassal backgrounds, we had no access to libraries, We had no access to even teaching and the texts, which were available. We all used to, in fact, take examination on the basis of what is called guest papers. We were all, coming from a small town in Bihar. If you were to buy the original text or something, it's not available. The departments didn't have those texts. Even our teachers had not read those texts. So what to talk of, but then, वो जो जज्बा है कि भाई हम कुछ कर सकते हैं, और वो जज्बा, उस जज्बे को पंख मिलता है जब हम JNU जैसी जगह में आते हैं, एक बहुत बड़ा और जब आपके पास सहूलियतें होती हैं, when you have the infrastructure, when you have access to libraries, the library is open 24/7, when the teachers are available at any point of time, and you don't have to really ring up your teacher and say, sir, are you available on such and such day? I think, this access is not just sitting in the classroom and going to the library, but also interacting with your teachers. Let me add something about the built-up spaces in JNU. You see, this JNU has not been built like, this is the teachers or faculty residential area, and this is the Karamchari residential area, and this is the students residential area. If you look at the original plan, the original plan had more than 3 sectors or 4 sectors. We talk of directional sectors like Vashinabad and Dakshinapuram and Uttarakhand and whatever, and Purvanchal. But it was to be much more than that. It was supposed to have 48 such complexes, 48 hostel complexes. That dream, I don't know, went down the drain. I don't know, it's somewhere stuck. Maybe जब नदियों की सफाई होगी तो वहाँ से मिलेगा. लेकिन सबसे बड़ी दिक्कत तो ये थी कि इनके सोचने वालों ने, जिन्होंने इस आर्किटेक्चर को डेवलप किया, उन्होंने देखा कि जब स्टूडेंट्स अपने कमरों से निकलें, अपने हॉस्टल से निकलें, so they will have an opportunity meeting their teachers, in the same road, because they are staying next door, that, you don't have to really have some kind of a control mechanism when in the middle of the night, if students who want to celebrate something and want to go loud, they will be conscious of the fact that, there are teachers staying next door. And these experiences have been a wonderful experience. So therefore, I would say that, it is the experience, it's incremental experience of how we need to do a lot more. But I think, JNU has been successful. And I look back and I feel very proud about the fact that, some of our experiments, some of our small initiatives have been successful, have really transformed the lives of people who, in fact, otherwise, they won't have been in a position to. I'm not saying this as in a paternalistic way, but I'm saying this precisely because it was a kind of a जिसको कहते हैं ना साथ चलने की जो एक्सपीरियंस है, उसमें मुझे नहीं मालूम उन लोगों ने मुझसे क्या सीखा, लेकिन हमने बहुत कुछ सीखा, और वो एक बहुत बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट है. ये जो टीचर्स के बीच, खास करके सोशल साइंसेज में, मेरे ख्याल से हर सीखने और लर्निंग प्रोसेस का ये हिस्सा होता है जहाँ पे आप सीखते हैं लगातार, तो वो उसका एक बहुत बड़ा, और ये एक ऐसा तजुर्बा है जो कोई हमसे छीन के नहीं ले जा सकता, और ये तजुर्बा JNU का है, और JNU से छीन के ले जाना भी बहुत मुश्किल होगा. ये बात मैं अच्छी तरह समझता.
We'll go to Sona now, and maybe you can give us some of your experience.
You reminded me to in fact deliberate upon or share some of my concerns. If one were to look at the new education policy, then it is one of the most important highlights of the new education policy is in fact close down the schools in the name of what we call rationalization of teachers, rationalization of students' strength, not realizing that a typical village in Santhal Pargana or in Kodarma or in Singhu would not have more than 20 households. And a 20 household village would not have more than 10 or 12 children, if one were to perhaps go by any statistics. Now if one were to perhaps look at India, then, nearly about 1/3 of the villages of India, they are of sizes which is less than 1,500 in terms of the population. And if one were to convert this into kind of school-going children, and then, I have contributed a paper on this somewhere. It would not work out to be having maybe 30 or 40 children in a particular age group, which will be attending the primary classes. Now, if the schools are being closed down in the name of rationalization as part of this, then, we are creating yet another layer of deprivation. We have arrived at, and you very rightly pointed out that, we should not be happy just with the numbers. But, we got to really do something about it. What the new education policy is doing is, and I will take this opportunity to share with you, that the new education policy is a modern Manusmriti, is a 21st century Manusmriti. It has added on to the kind of layers that we have already created in this country in the name of education. School education in our country is so graded. You have one for one class and the other for the other class. You have the Kendriya Vidyalaya and you have the Navodaya Vidyalaya, and you can have another stream of schools, in the name of, say, the Tribal Educational Development Eklavya, and Eklavya had to really do away with his thumb and not even have an access to the teacher. If that is what is Eklavya, then we are really talking about the kind of things which are likely to be created. Just to add, nearly about 60% of schools in India, they do not have science labs. More than 60%, or maybe about 7%. And this is the latest statistics from the DIAS data. They do not have science teachers. And this is at the +2 level. And below +2, that means, say, in secondary classes, even lower classes, science subjects are being taught by teachers who never had access to science learning. So you can just imagine, physical education का teacher जो है वो अंग्रेजी पढ़ाते हैं पंजाब में, है ना? और ये मैंने एक पंजाब पे काम किया तो उसमें हमने देखा है. तो इस तरह से अगर हमारा एलोकेशन है टीचिंग का, और आपको मालूम है कितने खाली पोजीशंस पड़ी हुई हैं, तो ये बहुत बड़ा कंसर्न है. और इसीलिए जो नए इस न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी के तहत जो प्राइवेटाइजेशन और रैशनलाइजेशन की बात हो रही है, और उसमें फिर हमारा ये डिप्रिवेशन पॉइंट्स, अफर्मेटिव एक्शन का क्या रोल होगा, इस पे ज़्यादा चिंता करने की ज़रूरत है. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, GER is the number, right? Yeah, where everybody feels very happy, or that is where things stop. Well, in Santal Varna, I can literally claim in the considering the undergrad and postgrad, more than 50% of the classroom is filled with tribal students. Now, if intentionally these concerns that we are raising of the schools being actual schools or places where teaching is happening, I'm wondering whether it's just making that vacuum rather than another set of schools. So therefore, is there a geographical marginalization now?
Yes. 40,000 schools in Jharkhand have been closed down already.
I just want to say that, please also make comments on the new education policy, since this is a nice
yes, of course, on that, probably most of the discussions is mainly around the accessibility, that whether the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, or the OBC student will get better access in the upcoming new education policy, where privatization and commercialization of education will take place. Of course, while suggesting this, that probably government will surely reflect on this kind of proposal, that there shall be some access of marginalized communities in this new education policy, and probably on a theoretical level they can also provide some kind of a policy framework to do that. But probably more than that, I think there is also a requirement to understand that education is not only for the entry point at the entry level, that you access education and the things are done. Probably the way, like for that matter, even in JNUTA, probably also suggested the same thing, that the kind of subtle practices of discrimination that generally happens in most of the campuses, the kind of a language that you use to understand the people coming from the different communities, or even the atrocities and violences, like as I said that probably Rohit Vemula's case in Hyderabad Central University is one of the major case of that kind of a brutal institutional violence against against the students. So that kind of issues are there, and probably in the larger run-up of that, we should allow institution to understand the claims for access from the deprived communities, but what happens once they get into the universities? The kind of barricades or distancing that they feel and face when getting education, or even the cases of atrocities and discrimination that are around at that part of time, we hardly had any policy framework to rectify that. And therefore, when the Rohit case happened in HCU, there was a claim that there should be some kind of a what they call Rohit Act in the parliament, which will understand that how the institutions are tackling the issues of discrimination and marginalization of the students. I think on that there is much more debate and discussion required, and probably, but we are mostly discuss issues that are related to access and quality education. But the problems that the Dalit Adivasi virgin students face in the university, and how to kind of make a policy framework or an institutional practice around that, probably we need to think more on that.
Thank you very much. And anybody else?
Well, again, the region I come from, so therefore, right now, therefore, in NEP, the provision of mother tongue education in school, I see has an opportunity as well as, if not dealt with, the downside side. Now, if the teachers are not speaking in the language the child understands, which happened to me, then obviously that becomes an access issue inside the institution, right? But then are the teachers getting equipped when they have completed all their studies and they decide to? But wonder if they decide to be teachers, because that's what I've seen. That's an option. अभी यही कर लेते हैं, B.Ed ही कर लेते हैं, नौकरी तो मिल जाएगी. Now, if that has been at the background of why they are doing B.Ed, how they would complete the entire curriculum and pass out, I feel very sad. And so even if in my university, if I insist that Santali, Kuro, Malto, and Angika, and Khota, if these are going to be the 5 languages compulsory in B.Ed, so that a teacher takes up at least one of these, and otherwise, besides these 5, none, okay, only then I would be confident that we would be preparing teachers for Santal Varna. And if they are not prepared to be teachers in Santal, if they don't want to be teachers in Santal Varna, then go to other university now, wherever they want to be teachers. Okay, that's my attitude. Point number 1. So therefore it needs to be carefully dealt with and provisioned. Okay. Now, I think why we are talking about the gap, access has happened, and then rationalization and etc. What has happened to the budget for education? 2.6 only, no. So if this is the outcome of 2.6%, right? And not even the 6 which was originally envisaged, right? So in order to make up for this 2 or 3 generational gap, I don't know how we will do it. So that's been. I was very surprised that, or shamelessly it's been put that it's been 2.6. That's there in the document. Now, vocationalization of undergrad programs is again a forceful way of bringing before the students that they be skilled in order to probably deal with the employment issue. We can, again, there are philosophical debates as to what was the purpose of education, if, or whether it should be a parameter also for employability and etc. etc. And somehow, I think again, hierarchically listing the skills based on the kind of skill it is, again is a deterrent to people willingly taking up certain vocational or skill-oriented courses. And so bringing it to the university is not doing justice, judicious glorification. Because unless again in the society, the dignity of labor is somehow brought in, I think all the skills will again be graded and there will be caste system, there is a caste system of the skills, right? Let us not be. And I would definitely like to see, because I feel this is how the certificate after you leave, if you leave after 1 year, diploma if you leave after 2 years, is just glorification of dropout.
Yes.
So therefore, I've been trying to talk to teachers. Let us believe the student who's taken admission is passing out with a degree. Okay. So let us have those provisions that if a student has really compulsive reasons to go out after 1 year, and now if we have credit transfer, multiple entry, multiple exit, why this certification and etc. Just to make the exit dropout glorified.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there, you can see that there's a lot of issues with our education system, and access is one thing, justice in education is another thing. So, and we have a lot of questions here. I was thinking of asking a little bit more about foreign universities and things like that, but I guess in the course of the conversation, if it comes up, it comes up. And I think since we have only half an hour, maybe it's wise to take up some of the questions that have been posed. Another thing that I want to say is that I think we really need to seriously think about language, in our education, because as Ramana pointed out yesterday as well, I think this is one stumbling block, and for many of us, to access higher education, we need English, and yet at the same time, most of us are not equipped to speak in that language, and we find it difficult to engage intellectually in a language that is not our own mother tongue as well. So there are many issues, especially in higher education, and yet we know that English provides us a way to, as academics, the global sort of academic platform as well. So I think that is one thing that educationists have to really think about as well. So there are some